The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Remember this, when you're the greatest fighter in the world today, they got a name for you. They don't call you a great fighter, they call you Chael Sonnen and beat me, if you can.
And after tonight, none of you in this ring will ever be the same again.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kid stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. Woo!
I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
And I have in my cold beer. You have your cold beer? If not, you are fucking jabroni.
Wash it down with 1 beer, 2 beers, 3 beers, a shot of whiskey.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Filthy FRB Show. It's Saturday, February 14th. It's Valentine's Day. Of course, I'm joined by Filthy Tom Lawlor. And our guest today is going to fight at UFC 184 in LA, February 28th. His name is James Krause. What's going on, James?
Yo, what's up, guys?
Not too much, man. You're out in Colorado right now?
Yep, I'm out at Colorado. I'm actually sitting outside of Factory X Muay Thai. I've been here for probably two and a half weeks. Just kind of finishing things up for my training camp and work on a couple of game plan deals. And, obviously been out here with Tim Elliott as he fights tonight. But, yeah, man, this is a great team out here and trying to finish everything up and feel sharp going into the 28th.
Yeah, so Factory X, that's Mark Montoya's gym out there in the Denver area. How does his room differ from some of the other training camps or gyms that you've trained at?
It's a different vibe. It really is. I really enjoy it here. I feel like it's super underrated gym. There's just loads of talent here. Nate Marquardt's out here training, Brian Rogers, Marcus Edwards, Brian Foster, Joe Warren. And that's just, Kamozi's here. There's a ton of guys here. There's definitely not a lack of talent in this room for sure, but I really can appreciate Mark's teaching styles. He has a kind of a different outlook on things. He's very intelligent with his game plans. I just like the way he talks to his fighters and he talks to me. And really, everybody out here has been very welcoming to me, and kind of open their minds up for information. And everybody's just trying to help me out. So, I felt like from day one I was part of the team, and they really welcomed me and did everything they can to help me get ready for this fight. So, that doesn't happen a lot in other places. You kind of, if it's your first time in the gym, you kind of get a green light put on your back sometimes where, people just try to test you and see how good you are, but that's definitely not the vibe here.
Yeah, James, we talked a little bit about, you have a fight coming up at UFC 184 that you've been training for against Valmir Lazaro, who it's pretty hard to find information on this dude. I don't know if he's been hiding out in parts unknown or if he's got some hidden ninja skill set. What can you tell us about him, if anything?
Yeah, he comes from southern Brazil. He does his training camps at the Nova União gym. He's got a Muay Thai background. He likes to kick the leg low. He's a very durable guy. 12-3 with 9 knockouts. One fight in the UFC. He's 0-1. Lost a decision to James Vick. It's pretty much the same with a lot of those Brazilians. They come in here with great records and they're tough, but this guy, he hasn't fought anybody. You know what I mean? He's got 9 knockouts, and that's what everybody keeps bringing up to me. Well, he's 12-3 with 9 knockouts. Does that worry you? Well, I ask you guys, name one person he's knocked out. he's fought a bunch of punching bags from Brazil that don't know how to throw a punch, and that's not a shot. That's just cold hard facts. The fact is he's never fought anybody as good as me, and it's different. It's different when you get in there. Tom, you fight. You know how it is. It's just a different feel. It's a different pace, a different pressure. Whenever you get in there with somebody that is better than you, and that's just how it's going to be. I'm gonna go in and put a pace that he's probably never felt before. Put a pressure he's probably never felt before, and in a different style. I bring a different style to the table. So I'm not the guy that's going to stand in front of him and do the Muay Thai. Okay, your turn. Now I'll go. Now you go. That's not what I'm going to do. So, that's pretty much the story. He hasn't fought anybody really, and the one guy he has fought that's decent, he lost to. So, that's pretty much him in a nutshell.
Yeah, I had a difficulty finding things. He doesn't have a Wikipedia, but he is on SureDog, and I went through his record, and the only guy that I recognized on the record was Vic from his UFC fight.
Well, hold on, real quick.
Okay.
Not to play devil's advocate, but he did beat Chris Wilson. He's also a UFC vet.
Oh yeah, an old Team Quest guy.
Yeah, so there you go. That also answers James' question of if I can not name one guy that he's knocked out, because I looked up his record and that's on there. So
yeah,
there you go. I stand corrected.
Yeah, well, I think Chris, he's seen some better days. I think he's about 6 or 7 years past his competitive prime. But I was taking a look at the card for UFC 184 in Los Angeles at Staples Center, and I was really surprised because James, you're a pretty popular fighter. People know who you are. You have mainstream sponsors within the industry, and I saw your name as a Fight Pass prelim. And then I took a look at some of the guys that are on the Fox Sports 1 prelims, and I was just like, hey, did Joe Silva mess this up? Was there something wrong there? Was that your reaction too?
Yeah, I can't believe it. And to me, it really makes no difference like where I fight on the card. But this is a money thing, man. Like, with the Reebok deal going through, I've already lost money on sponsors, and now, after coming in, I fight Stout on 16 days notice. Then I go to top 10 Bobby Green, and then I go to former champion James Varner, and then top 15 Masvidal, and now all those pay-per-view or towards the end of Fox Sports 1, and now I'm going to go to Fight Pass, and then so it's just, it kind of sucks, man. It's everything. It's messing with my money, and I feel like I bring a lot to the table. I feel like I'm exciting. The fans like to watch me, whether they know me or not. I feel like after somebody watches me fight, they're going to say, hey, whoever this guy is, I want to watch him fight again. Whether like I said, whether they know my name or not, they're going to remember my fights. I'm always exciting. I always bring it, and I always fight for the fans. I don't care about winning and losing. I just come out and I want to be exciting. So, yeah, it kind of pisses me off, if you want the truth about it. It's messing with my money, and I get, everybody saying that it's because of who I'm fighting. Well, put me with somebody else then, because it just doesn't make sense to me that I'm on Fight Pass, and you've literally got people that have never fought in the UFC that are higher on the card than I am.
So how did you get matched with them? So the way I understand it, Joe Silva will go to your manager, Joe Booster, and he'll bring up 2 or 3 names, and then you'll say, I'll fight him or him. Was that how it was presented to you?
No, man. See, hey, I wish I was an option guy. I get that shit all the time, and it pisses me off. I'm not that guy. They call me and they say, hey, do you want to fight this person? And I'm always like, yes. I always say yes. If I'm ready to fight, if it's not short notice or something crazy, I'm always down to fight. Look at who I fought. Stout, Varner, Green, Masvidal. You know what I mean? Like, they definitely, Joe Silva hasn't done me any favors, that's for sure. You know what I mean? And I don't know if they hate me or they love me or what. And I don't care. I'm here to fight the best. It's great. I appreciate him thinking highly of me. So, or lack thereof. I don't know how he feels about me, but I'm not an option guy. They don't give me the 2 or 3 options like they do these other guys, man. They call me with a name, and I generally say yes. So I don't know what I got to do to be the option guy, but whoever I got to knock out to get that, let me know, and let's make that happen.
So, Tom, is that some of the frustration that you've had in the past, or your fights was before Fight Pass even came to fruition, right?
Well, that's not my last fight. Was the main event on Fight Pass. Now,
I love the way that you said that. It was the main event.
Yeah, well, if you take a look, James, you're also the main event on Fight Pass too. So,
yeah, I mean, but I'm the only damn fight on there though.
Well, according to the schedule, there's another fight on there as well. But yeah, it's the Fight Pass deal kind of sucks. You get less viewership as far as who's watching your fights. If you're on one of the shows that's not on FS1, you're going to be pretty far down. So the fighters who are fighting on a lot of the European shows and overseas shows maybe get screwed a little bit when it comes to sponsors at this point because guys realize that they don't have the eyes that FS1 or even being on FS2 has. But you have to fight somebody and you have to fight them sometime. So you can't really turn down these fights.
So James, you brought up that it's messing with your sponsor money. And so that the Reebok deal is coming on, and I know you have quite a few sponsors, and so do you think this is going to help you, or this Reebok deal, or is this going to be to your detriment?
I don't really know. It's still, even though they keep putting new information out and stuff like that. Look, I'm the first guy to try to be positive about things. I don't try to be super negative about a lot of things, but here it's so hard to tell because they've brought out the tiered payment system and they brought out all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, we still don't know dollar amounts. So I can't honestly tell you. I have no idea. You know what I mean? Like all I know is right now, I've lost sponsors. I've lost monthly money coming in, and I'm on Fight Pass now, so I've lost even more money. And I get it, man. And I for sure I agree with Tom. I agree with you 100%, man. Somebody's got to fight on there, and hey, I'll be the guy to do it. And if they think they put me on there just to try to boost the Fight Pass ratings, I'll be that guy. I'm always down to do that stuff, but. They just haven't given us any information on dollar amounts or anything like that. So it's really hard for any of us to say, hey, yeah, this is going to be great, or no, this sucks. I just don't know.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating. When as far as it was told to me, there's like 3 tiers of this Reebok deal, and you get placed in one of the 3 tiers, and you have absolutely no idea the type of money you're going to get. You guys have bills just like everybody else, and then you see these articles about Paige Van Zandt getting an individual Reebok deal, and this is a girl that's fought a couple times against Waffle House waitresses, and has an exclusive deal with Reebok, and now you guys don't even know if you're going to get the same type of money you're used to, or you're going to be getting 30 cents on the dollar, or it's got to mess with your with your life, like because you have bills just like I do or any other fan.
Yeah, I'd be lying to you if I said it wasn't frustrating. But I'm trying to stay positive until they release the at least the dollar amounts until we can make an accurate assumption on what we're going to get paid. But yeah, it's frustrating that they're kind of keeping everybody in the dark on it. And I'd like to think that the UFC wouldn't make a move that would just completely. It just seems like, gosh dang, that would just be like I think that if it was a bad move, I think they would lose a lot of guys, to other organizations. And I don't think that they would make that big of a risk to do that. I hope not anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. And, Tom's actually been really positive about the Reebok deal. He wants to fight after July 1st, so he gets that Reebok money. And so what's your reasoning behind that, Tom?
Well, it's more about getting a pair of basketball shoes.
D. Brown?
Well, no, not D. Brown. Although he was one of my favorite players on the original NBA Jam. I'm looking forward to one of the new Allen Iverson series shoes. They're going to be coming out, so hopefully I can get a load of those. But no, it's just something different. I'm interested to see how the uniforms play out, what they're going to look like. And I've heard rumblings of them talking about there's going to be spots for other sponsors to be on there. I haven't heard anything in regards to that.
That's
So
not
we'll see
that's
if
not
that
true.
even comes to fruition.
That's not true anymore. They just released a thing that Tim just went to a meeting. No other sponsors. You can't have anything on your mouthpiece. Nothing on a banner. It's 100% exclusive. Nobody else whatsoever.
Yeah, I think there are like a couple companies. Like I saw Cerrone, like Bud can be on the shorts, but it's got to be like another company that has an official relationship with UFC. It can't be. You can't have a company that you just have a personal business relationship with.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm not even opposed to this whole deal. I'm really not. But like I said, it just seems like really nobody has any accurate information to put out to make a good, a positive or negative look on it. I guess I'd like to think that it'll end up being a positive thing for the guys, because I believe that I'll be a top 15 guy here within this year anyway. So I think it'll work out better for me. But I don't know. It's hard. It's so hard to say.
Yeah, and we're talking about the other sponsors that are able to, Bud Light and those sort of things. So Corn Nuts, the official corn snack sponsor of the UFC. Guys, give me a call. Let me know if you want to work something out.
Yeah, dude. I remember being at a couple events and they'd hire 6 or 8 girls who would walk around with these little samples of, what are they called again? Corn?
Yeah, Corn Nuts.
Corn Nuts.
They're absolutely delicious.
Really?
I think they're a Midwest thing, aren't they, James? Aren't they real popular out there?
Yeah, we have them all over. They are delicious too. We have all kinds of different flavors. Yeah, I mean, we have them at every gas station here.
Sure. And I know a lot of fighters, they're kind of superstitious about not looking past the opponent that they have, but it's just kind of human nature to want to look forward or, look past your next opponent, because you got to have a plan in the grand scheme. So who's the guy after you beat up this Brazilian guy that no one's ever heard of?
I don't have the answer to that. I know one thing. I know that I'm a top 15 fighter, and I think I'll be there this year. So whoever I have to fight to get into that spot, so be it. That's 100% fine with me. I don't want to call it looking past anyone. I train the same for every single person, whether it's the champ or somebody that nobody's ever heard of. I train the same. So I look past everybody, but I never overlook anybody, if that makes sense. Sure.
I just think, though, when guys, after they get that W, they need to call out somebody. It could be anybody. The whole thing, I'll fight anybody that Joe Silva says, to me, it's such a cop-out.
Well, that was what was frustrating for me, is because, a few months back, Takanori Gomi was looking for a fight in Japan. I've always wanted to fight Gomi, and I've always wanted to fight in Japan, so it just made sense. So I lobbied for it on Twitter, Facebook. We emailed Joe Silva. I mean, and nothing. We never even got a response about it. So it was just, it's frustrating for me, because I don't like to do that stuff anyway. I'm not big on calling people out or anything like that. But I go out on a limb and I do it, and I kind of got shut down on the whole deal. I don't know why. They gave him Miles Jury instead, and obviously Miles walked right through him. But it was definitely kind of frustrating for me.
Yeah, I mean, the guys, it looks like Al Iaquinta is ranked number 15 currently, and Rustem Habilov is 14th. Maybe those are a couple of guys you should target after you beat up this guy.
Yeah, it's definitely an option. I don't know, I don't know how they look at that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know the process. I don't know if they have like I don't know how the hell it works. You know what I mean? I don't know if they would give me a top 15 guy after a win over Lawlor or not. I would take it in a heartbeat if they offered it to me. But I think I've proven that I'm not afraid to fight anybody in the division. I think I've fought. I want to say I fought 5 top 10 UFC guys.
Yeah, Cerrone.
Cerrone, Lamas, Michael Johnson, Masvidal. Well, he's top 15. Bobby Green. Yeah, that's 5 right there.
Yeah, I think Masvidal is really one of the most underrated guys as far as the public. That guy's solid all around. He's been through wars. He has a proven track record, and he just doesn't get the respect kind of that he deserves from a lot of the fans. I think that he has that fight coming up now with
Quinta.
I'm sorry?
With Al Iaquinta.
Oh, okay, yep, with Al Iaquinta, and I think that Masvidal is going to be the favorite there, even though Iaquinta is coming off 2 big victories over Ross Pearson and Joe Lozon. Masvidal had a pretty funny quote where he said, "Welcome to 8 years ago. I beat up Joe Lozon 8 years ago, so what's it matter?" And I really think he's one of the most underrated guys that's out there.
I would agree with that 100%. He's good. He is good. He's a very durable guy that just. I think the reason why he gets underrated is I feel like he kind of fights to his opponent's ability and pace. He doesn't ever overexert himself, and he doesn't finish a ton. He's a very hard guy to be finished, but he doesn't finish fights very often. And but he's still good, and he pulls out he beat me. He pulls out the victory. He finds ways to win, and man, that's hard to teach. It's hard to. But yeah, I would agree with you 100%. Man, I think he's one of the most overlooked guys in the division.
Yeah, and another guy that's hard to finish is Zach Makovsky, who your teammate Tim Elliott is going to be fighting tonight.
Yep.
The guy Makovsky's never been submitted. Very tough to finish. And, I assume that you guys were out there in Colorado getting used to the altitude, and, that Elliott will probably be looking to push the pace on Makovsky.
Yeah, Tim's been out here for over 3 weeks. I believe Zach just got in on Tuesday. So that's definitely something that we've looked at and want to possibly take advantage of if the opportunity is there.
Yeah. And are people – now, James, I'm actually going to Colorado on Sunday. I've never been before. But are people just walking around zombies in the street, high out of their mind with this with this recreational marijuana or what? I just imagine it's like Mad Max out there.
No, it's actually one of the coolest places I've ever been. It's everybody is very fit here. You see people jogging, running, biking. It just seems like it's a very modern area, at least where I'm at anyway. Everybody is into fitness. There's a lot of local eating spots that are healthy, and it was actually quite opposite of what I expected.
So, James, back home, you're from the greater St. Louis area, right? Or Kansas City?
Kansas City.
Greater Kansas City. Now, you own a gym too, right? Called Glory. Is that your gym?
Yes, we have 2 locations.
Wow. So now you were previously Grindhouse, right? Is that are you affiliated or did that become Glory or how?
Yeah, we changed the name. Basically, it was pretty much a business move. It's if you're a parent and you want your kid to learn martial arts and get the life skills out of martial arts, taking your son or daughter to a place called Grindhouse probably isn't going to be your first pick.
Yeah. It sounds like somewhere that could be located close to Little Darlings here in Las Vegas.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a business decision. You know what I mean? It kind of we broadened our audience with the name change, and it just made sense for us from a business perspective.
Sure. So you're about to go in. You're going to finish up. This is your last training session coming up here in 10 minutes or so. This
is my last training session in Colorado. Yep.
So how do you taper? When do you just say, that was my last hard training session, or how close to the fight do you go?
Well, last Friday I pretty much fought Brian Foster. So we got after it here at Factory X, and then I will probably go home tomorrow, and I'll probably spar hard on Monday, and then be done with hard sparring.
Gotcha. Tom, do you have anything else for James?
No. I'm just I'm excited to see what he brings to the cage in a couple weeks on that February 28th show, and that's about it. I'm always a fan of guys that come from smaller cities. Not that Kansas City's like a small shithole, but it's good to see guys come from these places that aren't necessarily California, Las Vegas, Florida. Places that have been the hotbeds for MMA for a while. I'm a big fan of guys coming out of some of the Midwestern cities and the smaller markets, which haven't gotten a lot of the fanfare. So as always,
don't get it twisted. I say Kansas City just to make it easier. I'm from a little ass town called Odessa of 5,500 people, so I appreciate that massively.
Well, my point was there's tough guys everywhere now. 10 years ago, you couldn't say the same thing. If you want to be one of the top guys in MMA, you had to be in California. You had to be in New York City where there's a million training partners. Now you see guys that are able to make something out of themselves coming from these smaller towns. And to me, I think it's awesome. It's one of the great things about MMA. And, it kind of keeps evolving in that aspect.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. It's definitely, I completely agree with that. It's cool to see. I enjoy watching guys come out of smaller towns and doing big things as well. It's exciting for me too. So I appreciate that.
Great. Appreciate the time, James. Good. Best of luck on the 28th. Not that you need it, but we're looking forward to seeing you. I'll be logged into Fight Pass unless there's an injury. Maybe there's an injury that happens and you get promoted to the main card. I mean, that's not totally out of the realm of possibility.
No, or 15 people miss weight like last night.
Yeah,
yeah, that seems to be happening, which is something you've never done, and you take fights on short notice too.
Yeah, it's absurd, man. Apparently you don't have to make weight anymore. You can do drugs now. You can do cocaine, PEDs, whatever. You pretty much do whatever you want now. So there's really no reason for me to follow the rules, right? It's just, why would I?
See, that's interesting because Brendan Schaub said a kind of a similar thing to what you just said, and like the media kind of took it out like he was promoting drug use and stuff. Like, oh, I'm just going to do that now, but they didn't get the facetiousness of the comment. But it does seem like that. You don't need to make weight, and anything you do outside the cage as far as substances it's all good until you get caught.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And this may sound super cheesy, but what happened to being role models and to kids and stuff like that. And that's what these guys don't understand is other people look up to these guys, and they don't. Not only do they not get it, they don't care, and it's crazy. You have to look at stuff like that. You really do. You're a professional athlete. And, I'm not going to name drop, but there's top guys in the division that these kids want to be like these guys. When they see this, you're sending a message to everybody saying that it's okay to do this stuff. Not even to do that, but just to do whatever you want and not worry about consequences. You send the wrong message to others by doing that. And that, it's I don't know. I think it's just, I think you guys get where I'm going.
I hear you, man.
It's ridiculous.
I hear you. Hey, thanks for the time, man. And, like I said before, best of luck on the 28th, UFC 184 in Los Angeles. And we're looking forward to seeing you fight then. Thanks, man. Have a good workout.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yep. Good luck.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, welcome back to the Filthy FRB Show. Our next guest is the publisher of the MMAReport.com. He also has been reporting on Bellator very closely, probably since its inception. His name is Jason Floyd. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good, guys. How y'all doing?
Good. What about you, Tom? You didn't answer.
Yeah, well, I'm having a dispute with the United States Postal Service and Amazon at the moment, so things aren't that great for me, but they'll get better now that Jason's on the line.
So for the people that don't know, Tom is going to Europe, and he's like making this out that he's like some, guy that's given back to the armed forces, and he's getting a free trip to Italy. He's not going to Iraq. So, he's putting himself over as this guy that gives back to the military. And he's complaining and bitching and moaning that, he needs his gi. But why'd you wait till the last moment to order this gi?
Well, I ordered specifically I ordered an ultralight gi. For those of you out there that train, you know what I'm talking about if you train in the gi. For those of you like Brian, who the only workout they do is the 12-ounce curls to the face with the Coors Light, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But it's a really light gi because I'm only traveling with one backpack. So I waited. I ordered it. It was supposed to arrive yesterday. It was guaranteed to deliver yesterday. Did not happen. So I'm pissed off. And the only thing that's going to be able to stop that is probably going to be a bunch of free pizza in Italy. So.
Well, let's get to the important part. Let's talk to Jason. Enough about your whining there. Jason, the Bellator card last night from Fresno, California, the takeaway for me was, why the hell was Manhoef allowed to compete in that fight after getting brutally knocked out by Joe Schilling November 15th of last year?
Brian, I was saying that from the moment they announced that fight. When they announced the fight, he was still on suspension. They announced it on December the 6th. He got a 45-day, 30-day no contact from the California Commission. First off, the blame, you have to look at Bellator. First off, because they had to go to the commission with the fight. And I just think that a guy who gets knocked out cold like that, he should not be returning 90 days later. And you know what? And he got knocked out cold once again. I hope we don't see him for at least 6 months, if not a year.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, as a fighter, what do you think about a guy getting, especially a guy like Manhoef, who's been knocked out in MMA, has been through a ton of wars in kickboxing, gets knocked out November 15th, and here he is back last night, February 13th. Do you think it's the job of the promotion to protect the athletes from themselves?
To a certain degree, yeah, for sure. I'm not sure. Honestly, after seeing the way that man who's been knocked out the past few times and taking into account, I'm sure the sparring sessions that he's in are no joke. And all the kickboxing matches he's had, he's getting to the tail end of his career anyways. He might want to start thinking about toning it down a little bit because, they advertise it as a Melvin Manhoef fight. Somebody's getting knocked out. Unfortunately, more recently it's been him that's on the receiving end of that. And at, age 38, it might be time to just, take a look at his style and say that he needs to change things up.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I looked up, his birthday is in May, so he's going to be 39 in May. And, when you're in your mid-20s or late 20s, some of those knockouts you can probably shake off and not be affected in the long run. But when you're continuously getting knocked out in your mid to late 30s, I don't know how you ever recover from that, even if you give them 6 months off. What do you think, Jason?
Well, I think, Sam Caplan has talked about this extensively, is when a guy starts his career, there should be like a baseline MRI so you can kind of see what damage is done to his head. I think minimum 6 months, it has to be. This isn't just like a TKO. I mean, we're talking about he was knocked out cold, and last night he was knocked out before he hit the ground. So there's got to be somebody, whether it's Scott Coker or if we're talking about the UFC, it's Dana White. There's somebody that's got to protect the fighter some way, because obviously the California Commission thought there was no issues with it, and I like Andy Foster. I think Andy Foster's doing a lot of great things when you look at the drug testing that he is doing. The fact is, the Bellator card from January, the drug tests are not back at this time, and we're talking it's been a month from that card. To me, that says the B sides are being tested. I mean, we've probably got more failed drug tests coming.
Yeah, Jason, I was talking to another reporter last night, and they said to me that there is CIR testing being conducted on a sample from the Bellator card in January.
Yeah, I've talked to Andy Foster. I've probably called Andy Foster at least every day for the past 2 weeks trying to get those results, and he keeps telling me they're not back. And so when you're at this stage, that means something's up. And we've seen Bellator fighters get popped before, and I mean, Brian, the perception's always been out there about Bellator when they go to certain venues that may not do a lot of drug testing. But California is one of those commissions that has always drug tested Bellator fighters. And look, I just want to see this sport get cleaned up, and by getting cleaned up means everyone on the card needs to get tested.
Sure. And for the people that are listening that might not, I don't even fully understand this, but I have a little bit of a handle on it. So when a testosterone to epitestosterone ratio comes back out of the norm being, WADA is 4-1. It might be 6-1 in California. I'm not exactly sure. So probably what happened was maybe this test came back 10-1 or 12-1. So that kind of raises a red flag that synthetic testosterone was administered. So the carbon isotope ratio test is able to tell you within, from what I'm told, from 2 weeks from the test, if that person consumed synthetic testosterone. And it might be more than 2 weeks. And at least according to Victor Conti, it's when you're within that 2 week time frame, it's foolproof. It will tell you if somebody administered synthetic testosterone, whether in oral pill form or with a needle.
Yeah, that's kind of my understanding as well. I mean, I'm there's a lot of people that are a lot more smarter than I am on this, but that's kind of my understanding on it as well, Brian.
Sure. The other news, and ask Tom about this, is February 27th in Mohegan Sun, the next Bellator event. They're going to have a press conference with Kimbo Slice, who your friend Seth Petrozelli, I bring this up every time we talk about Kimbo, but I guess you have to. He knocked him out at Elite XC Heat, or whatever it was called, in Miami. So what do you expect to come from this press conference with Kimbo Slice?
You talking to me or
talking
to Jason?
Yeah, I'm talking to you. Is Seth gonna? Yeah, is Seth gonna show up and make this challenge to him and say, "Hey, you want another chance at me," or what?
My guess is it's doubtful that Seth is showing up anywhere unless there's a bunch of 21-year-old girls hanging out. So maybe if Kimbo's got the cast and crew from Reality Kings there.
Well, yeah, he's got the hookup to them.
Yeah, maybe Seth will be showing up, but I don't know anything about that. I'm expecting that Kimbo's going to fight another decently sized name. Maybe somebody that we haven't heard from in a while. Maybe Jason knows more about it. I'm not up to date on the Kimbo Slice news like I should be.
Guys, I hate to say it. It wouldn't shock me if it's Bob Sapp.
Ooh.
Wow. I mean, that would be such a train wreck. It'd be interesting.
But I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you guys saw the interview John Nash did with Coker like 2 weeks ago. He kept bringing up Bob Sapp's name the entire interview. And I'll give credit to Sam Caplan pointed this one out to me. He said, he goes, man, it almost seems like maybe that's the guy they're bringing in for Kimbo. And I think that they're going to be very selective in what commission they go to. I don't think that if they went to the Mohegan Commission right now and brought up Kimbo Slice, I don't think Mike Mazzulli would license him for a fight. I think you're either going to see Kimbo fight in California or in Florida. Most likely Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and then especially with Bob Sapp basically admitting on Ariel Helwani's show that he's lost fights on purpose. I mean, like a New Jersey commissioner, Mohegan Sun, or Ohio, or Nevada. I mean, when you're on record saying that, I don't know how they're going to give you a license.
But Brian, you know what the scary thing is there'll probably be more people that would watch that fight as opposed to tonight's Benson Henderson Brandon Thatch match.
Well, yeah, you're right. And that's one of the things that Coker was talking to John Nash on BloodyElbow.com in that video about a week ago. He was talking about just what a cultural icon Bob Sapp was in Japan. He had, blue chip sponsors, and now, he won quite a few fights, and now he's just kind of become a laughingstock because he loses fights on purpose.
But if you're Bellator and you're Viacom, you got to build up Kimbo Slice. I don't know if Kimbo Slice is still a thing in 2015. This isn't 2010 anymore, so I don't know if 1 million, 2 million people are going to tune in to Spike TV just because Kimbo Slice is fighting. I still say I think the key for Bellator when you're using a guy like Kimbo Slice is, can you use Kimbo to get other talent out of American Top Team? And that's one of the teams that we really haven't seen put talent in Bellator recently. Now, they have some talent that has been in Bellator in the past, like Will Brooks, Daniel Strauss, guys like that, but you haven't seen those American Top Team guys signing with Bellator recently. Can they use Kimbo to get those guys?
Sure. Yeah, kind of like AKA, like any new prospect that AKA or Zinkin has is going directly to Bellator. But, Tom, is Kimbo Slice still a thing in 2015 in your estimation?
Yeah, actually, I think he is. You'd be surprised at the people that you run into on the street who still recognize Kimbo Slice. Obviously it's a important topic for me as I run into people on the street. That's the first thing I bring up. It's like, hey, you know this guy Kimbo Slice? There's a lot of people that don't even know that he's fought MMA still and lost, which is alarming in a way. But yeah, I think Kimbo Slice is going to grab some viewers for sure. And I think a fight with Bob Sapp, if everybody gets a chance to see the Sapp Time video, I think it would do huge ratings for Bellator.
And I guess the interesting part of that fight and why I would want to watch is how quickly does Sapp take a dive? Are we talking 10 seconds, a minute?
Yeah. The interesting, I guess the thing that interests me the most or makes me think it'll get a lot of viewers too is the old white housewife community is probably going to be watching that. Heavily.
Kimbo, yes. Is that because of his association with Reality Kings, or?
Yeah, and my boy, the MILF Hunter.
Yeah, that brings up. Yeah, I hate to get the train off the tracks here, but whatever happened to the MILF Hunter?
I believe he owns a bar down in Florida, and I know this because I have friends that have hung out with him at the said bar. So
no shit. Wow, he is a legendary internet figure, just as Kimbo was, or still is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Jason, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, because you know more about Bellator than probably Scott Coker does, to be honest with you. Fedor, he's going to be in attendance at Mohegan Sun, and what do you make of him being present there?
I just think this is a way to sell tickets. I mean, Fedor, I think the odds you ever see Fedor back in a fight are literally 5%. I mean, the old regime tried to sign Fedor. I mean, so it wasn't like, when Scott Coker came in, they said, hey, let's try to get Fedor. I mean, everyone wants to bring Fedor. I mean, I'm sure if the UFC had signed Fedor, they'd bring him in. He'd bring a big fight, potentially, like a Brock Lesnar type fight. But I think that it's going to get some fans excited. But is it going to sell a lot more tickets to the event? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, Fedor only comes over to North America when he really has to. So I guess they're making it worth his while. What do you think, Tom? You think it'll drive any ticket sales, or just to get
I don't know. It's tough to say based on the venue. With Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods, those are like destination venues. You have to go out of your way to go there. It's not something like being in one of the other cities that's closer, like New York or Boston, where you might be in town and there are fights going on, and you can get over there. And kind of show up at the last minute and maybe score tickets. Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun, you kind of have to go out of your way to get there to see these fights at all. So I think the hardcore fans that were going to go, were probably going to go anyways. And I'm not sure that Fedor is going to bring in a lot of outside people. The other thing you have to look into when you take this fight into account is that it's a U.S. versus U.K. invasion angle that Bellator is going with. So right there, 50% of the card basically has nothing to do with the area that they're in. And, we've seen in the past Bellator a lot of times, maybe they've kind of moved away from it now, but we're stacking the card in favor of local fighters, getting a lot of local talents on the show to drive ticket sales. And if you take a look at the main card for this upcoming Bellator 134 show, you kind of don't see that. And in an area like Mohegan or Foxwoods where people have to go to see the fights anyways, that could hurt them.
Yeah, and Jason, how has attendance been at Mohegan Sun for Bellator? Do they ever disclose any of the gates or the paid attendance?
In terms of the gates, never really put out there, but attendance, the last attendance was over 7,000. I mean, it's a 10,000. I mean, it can be up to 10,000 seat venue. But what they do is they use the local cards to bring in, like Matt Bissett, for instance. He's going to be on the fight that's going to be after the main card is over. He's a big ticket seller up there. Josh Diekman, a heavyweight, he's on the card. He's a big ticket seller. I mean, there's a lot of ticket sellers they have on the preliminary card. I mean, they'll pack it in. I remember for the card back in I want to say it was February last year when Rampage and Mo were both on the card. I remember standing in line to get my credential, and they were turning people away because they were sold out. I mean, it's the best venue Bellator goes to, and a lot of it's just because that area supports their local fighters. They come out to those events, and and Brian, I know you like this. They enjoy their cocktails because when you sit on press row, don't put anything on the ground because if you do, it's going to either have some liquor or some beer stains all over it.
Yeah, and as some of you will hear on the next episode of the Chael Sonnen podcast with Ben Askren, liquor is not my forte. It's definitely not a performance enhancer, so I'm just keeping to my Coors Light going forward.
See, I'm more of a liquor guy.
Yeah, I haven't heard the audio, and I'm hoping they don't bury me too hard, but I kind of got a heads up that it came up. But, Fedor, a free agent, of course, but a couple other free agents that have been linked to Bellator, Alberto Del Rio or Alberto Del Tron. What is his new name, Tom?
El Patron.
El Patron. How could I mess that up? And also the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. What are you hearing about these guys?
Del Rio, I heard he's pricing himself out of the market. He wants so much money that he's not Brock Lesnar. Brock's got that name that casual people are going to know. I mean, if you went on the street, like if you went to a sports bar right now, how many MMA fans know who Alberto Del Rio is? I just don't,
not too many.
I mean, I think he lives here in my hometown of Tampa, and I don't know if anybody would know who he is. Now, Brock Lesnar on the other side, everyone's going to know what he is, but also the cost that's going to come along with that, and how much more money are they going to have to give him as opposed to what the UFC is going to give him. I just don't know if it makes financial business sense for Viacom to make that move, but I think they're going to try.
I mean, that's the question that I came up with. It's like Lesnar, you're going to have to pay him $2 to $3 million. How do you make that money up on a free TV model?
I think it's more money.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, how do you make that up? Unless you go to pay-per-view. You have to go
pay-per-view if you're going with Brock. I mean, I think that the matchup that would make the most sense and put on pay-per-view would be Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley. I think that's a fight that would get a lot of people drawing eyes. But when your initials are not the UFC and you're doing an MMA pay-per-view, I mean, what's a great pay-per-view buy rate? 150,000 buys?
Yeah, that would be really good, yeah.
I mean, you looked at the initial Bellator pay-per-view. It did just over 100,000 pay-per-view buys, and that was perceived as a great pay-per-view. It's tough in this industry when your initials aren't UFC to do that kind of fight. And if you're Viacom, can you go out and get enough sponsors that it makes sense to give Brock whatever he wants?
And, Tom, it was interesting about that Bellator pay-per-view. They kind of marketed it as, a Tito Ortiz pay-per-view. It was Tito versus Stephan Bonner. They didn't push it was a Bellator pay-per-view. They pushed the names, and it was up to the person watching the commercial to put it together. Oh, there's two UFC Hall of Famers. So it was almost like a little test on the audience.
Yeah, for sure. You're talking about the last big show that Bellator did, not necessarily the pay-per-view.
Did they switch that to free TV?
Yeah, that was the free TV, but that was the last big show that they did. And you're right. You know, they marketed it more towards the names that were involved. I think both companies, the UFC and Bellator, could do a better job building, you know, individual stars, but they've done a decent job of, you know, obviously the UFC gets their name out there, you know, more than any other company in MMA. You know, but Bellator's done a good job of pushing stars. You know, they're getting some names out there. Obviously, Michael Chandler was getting pretty well known, and that now Will Brooks has kind of stolen a little bit of his thunder. You know, you've had Emmanuel Newton has been headlining cards. And, you know, if you look at this upcoming show, you know, they talk in the commercials a lot about UK fighters versus the US fighters. And, you know, I think seeing it kind of switch to that and away from just promoting the Bellator or UFC name is something that the fighters, you know, can really look at and look at in a positive way.
Sure. Yeah, and, you know, Jason, I know as, you know, a Bellator insider and somebody was covering them closer than anybody, really, you know, before they kind of, you know, went on Viacom and all this. The last time you spoke to Bjorn Rebney, where, when, what was said? You know, have you tried to reach out to him since?
Yeah, the last time I saw him personally was at the Bellator 120 card, and this was after the press conference was over. He'd done a scrum, and, you know, I was getting ready to pack things up, and he said, he goes, "What'd you think of the card tonight?" And I said, it was all right. He goes, "Just all right?" I go, "Bjorn, the pacing was awful." And basically he goes, "Fuck you." And I go, "All right." And literally, and I talked to him on the phone literally probably was like a week before he got fired in New York, when him and Tim Danaher got fired. And I said to him, I go, "Come on, what about these rumors?" And I mean, I had heard the rumors for, you know, 2 years that he could be out, and he's like, "No, man." He goes, I'm here." But, you know, and I think when him and Tim Danaher went to New York, they had no idea they were going to get fired, and obviously Bjorn had to be bought out. You know, he was a minority shareholder, so they had to buy Bjorn out of the company, and that's why I think you haven't heard from Bjorn. I've probably called, text Bjorn countless times. I've never heard anything, and I've talked to various people associated with Bellator, and no one has heard from Bjorn Rebney. I think that he's just taken his money, and you know, he's probably made a lot of money from the initial sell of Viacom and now being bought out of the company. He may not have to work another day in his life. The only thing you hear is that if you ever see Bjorn come back, it'll be in some TV role, like producing some type of sports show.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I keep seeing the tweet come up on my timeline about him saying something about Mexico.
Yeah, I think that was during the World Cup.
Oh, okay. Okay. But why was the World Cup? It wasn't in Mexico, was it? It was in Brazil, right?
It was in Brazil, but I think, you know, Mexico was playing some game, and, like, I think maybe they won like an extra time or something like that. But yeah, that's, you know, no one's heard from him. You know, I know there's people I've talked to that have heard from Tim Danaher, but when it comes to Bjorn, man, it's like he's just fallen off the earth.
How would you describe your relationship with Bjorn? Was it a friendship, or was it just strictly asking him questions about Bellator MMA?
I mean, look, it was reporter to CEO type thing. I mean, I think I probably had a better relationship with Bjorn than anybody else did. I mean, I was able to find out some things, get some info. But there was also times where, you know, he would say, "Fuck you," you know, and he didn't agree with what I thought. I think the reason Bjorn always respected me was I was honest with him. You know, he would say something to me, and I said, "Bjorn, that's a really bad idea." I mean, Bjorn, they made a lot of bad decisions. You can look at the Eddie Alvarez situation, a horrible decision. And maybe if the Eddie Alvarez thing doesn't go down the way it goes down, maybe Bjorn's still running Bellator. I mean, he just made a lot of mistakes, you know, but I mean, look, you would hear the horror stories about what Bjorn was like in the office. You just would hear, I mean, you still hear it to this day of how bad he was, but At the end of the day, somehow Bjorn Rebney was able to get guys to sign with Bellator, and with as bad as people think of him, it's kind of amazing how he could sign fighters.
Yeah, and I was listening to your podcast that you do with Sam Caplan, MMA Insiders, and Tom, you might think this is funny, but Sam brought up a story that Bjorn accused him of being front row Brian because of some leaks. And he accused Sam Caplan of being me.
Poor Sam Caplan.
No, but I mean, I just thought that was funny, man.
Brian, there are still people in Bellator right now, with Bjorn gone and everyone else being gone, that have literally said, how the hell do you know what's going on in our building?
Yeah, well, and if I tell them, nobody's ever going to tell me anything.
But Brian, you know this. This is a small industry. Everyone talks.
Sure.
I mean, it's not that hard to find out information. If you know who to call, you can find out any information you want in this business.
Yeah, and most people they want to talk. I don't know what their motive is, but they usually want to tell you something.
See, that's the thing. You have to make sure it's like, okay, why are they telling me this? Are they trying to use me? And sometimes when the information is so good, you almost say, man, is this too good to be true? And am I being used to put something out there that's not really true?
My experience is, maybe their intentions is to embarrass Bellator or another organization, but the information is accurate because they know that I also have a platform that if they feed me bullshit, that I could throw it right back on them and say, what this person was trying to do.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've dealt with that. I mean, we get some information that obviously there's always going to be people who want to bash other fighters, other managers, but that's why I always say you try to get 2 or 3 different sources on it to try to figure out what is really going on.
Yeah, so with Bjorn gone, and their main PR guy also gone, and his assistant, the girl, I forget her name. How has your relationship changed with Bellator? Dealing with their PR department.
I don't think it's really changed at all. I mean, I think that it's you have to work together. When you're doing PR, I mean, it's if I hear a fight booking, I'm gonna call someone up in Bellator and try to get confirmation. I mean, I think it's been pretty good. I think the new regime and the new PR staff, they're trying to figure out. I mean, their new PR director's been around in MMA. He was the PR director for the World Series of Fighting for some time. He's worked with Coker in the past, so he knows the MMA industry. He knows who he's going to call to. I personally think I have a good relationship. I guess my first I was at the last Mohican card. I'll be at this Mohican card. So I'll see if anything's different, if maybe they shut me out at all.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they appreciate that, you're one of the few media people who put Bellator, I'm not saying that you have any allegiance to them. I'm just saying that you give them more attention than your average person who's, covering UFC.
And I'll tell you, the reason I did that was when I was working in radio covering MMA and I decided to, start my own website. I just looked at what was in the MMA websites out there, and everything was the same. And I was like, you got to be different. Like I tell anybody who wants to start a website, you can't just be MMA junkie. You can't be MMA fighting and just simply copy and paste what they post. You got to put original stories out there. And at the time, I said, you know what? No one's really covering Bellator. They're the de facto number 2 promotion, which, I mean, look, they're nowhere near close to UFC. But, it's just go out there and give them coverage. And I think that when you offer content that's not out there, you're going to get recognized quicker than just literally just every time UFC announce a fight booking, posting that story.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And here's a question for Tom first, and then also you, Jason. In the 7 or 8 months that Scott Coker has been steering the wheel, so to speak, at Bellator, what are some of the positives? What are any negatives? I mean, I haven't really heard any negatives, but what do you guys think?
Well, personally for me, the biggest positive that I saw was the introduction of the rampway on the aforementioned Tito Ortiz versus Stephan Bonner show. I thought that the production value on that show was awesome. I thought, the little things they added into the entrances. I thought the walkway, I thought the whole presentation was great, and that was really a step in the correct direction. Now, personally, I haven't dealt with, obviously, the contract situation and the management in Bellator, but everything I've heard, is a positive in regards to Scott Coker and the management team that he's brought in. And, as far as being an MMA fan and kind of removing myself from being with the UFC, it's a really exciting thing to see happen. It reminds me back to my glory days of watching the Monday Night Wars between WWE and WCW in a way, to see, Bellator running shows almost head-to-head with the UFC or on the same weekend and seeing who comes out on top. So, to me, that's just been the biggest thing. I think Bellator's really up the ante and raised its stock ever since bringing in Scott Coker.
I think the biggest thing is public perception. I mean, the public perception of Bjorn was awful, and they turned that around. I think maybe the only negative you can point towards is who are the up-and-coming prospects that they are signing. Sorry, Neiman Gracie is not an up-and-coming prospect. I was at his last fight. His stand-up's awful. Yes, Chris Honeycutt, tremendous signing, but can you, they're going to get guys out of AKA. They're going to get Mike Kogan clients, but can you go out and get guys out of Jackson's, out of the Black Zillions, out of American Top Team, Team Alpha Male? Can you get those kind of fighters in Bellator? That, to me, is the only negative I would point at Bellator right now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, some of those camps, it's going to be very difficult. Team Alpha Male basically is a pipeline to the UFC. Jackson's, of course, going to be very difficult for them. But I mean, they definitely have an in, at AKA. The other thing I wanted to ask you, were you going to say something, Tom?
Yeah, hold on, Brian.
Go ahead.
Because this is something I want to talk about that kind of stretches across UFC and Bellator, right? In the UFC, I mean, just this past week, we've seen, I think it's JoJo Calderwood is complaining about the lack of fights that she's able to get, right? There's a finite number of UFC cards. I mean, people complain about the number of cards, but there's still like more fighters under contract who are looking for fights than there are people signed to fight. And, you can only make money in the UFC or in other organizations if you're fighting, right? And as those opportunities kind of lessen, maybe it gives people an opportunity to go to Bellator, or maybe, that's an avenue that they look at compared to how they would in the past, where the UFC is just, the end of the road. The UFC is the main event, so to speak. And Bellator is not getting a fair shake when it comes to being looked at with these up-and-coming prospects. I think, as time goes by and Bellator is seen as like a more viable option, you'll see these younger fighters perhaps take a chance because they're not able to get the fights in the UFC on a regular basis.
Sure.
It's all about money, man. You got to make money somehow, right?
And one of the things I've heard is that there is a freeze on Joe Silva and Sean Shelby signing fighters right now unless there's an injury. So Bellator might be able to use that to their advantage.
Say that again, Jason.
There's a rumor about basically a signing freeze in the UFC unless there is an injury that they're not signing anybody right now. Maybe that's a rumor that's not true, but that's one of the things I've heard recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible unless you're just like an incredible prospect. But yeah, they didn't even. I don't know if they were in negotiations with Pico. I hadn't heard anything.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing about Pico is you're probably at least 2 years away from him even getting into MMA by the time he gets done with his wrestling, So I mean, I know the UFC obviously assigned some guys out of American Top Team and Black Zillions at 170 pounds for the Ultimate Fighter. That they're currently filming that show down in South Florida. So I mean, they've signed those 170 pound guys, but outside of that, you really haven't heard about any new guys signing with the UFC.
CM Punk.
Yeah, I was just about to say, CM Punk, because I was out in Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago and had an opportunity to talk to Duke Rufus, and he's saying 1 year. he wants Punk under his, he wants 1 year out of him before he's ready to put him in a cage.
I like that thought process. I mean, make sure he's ready. And if you're the UFC, you don't want to rush him in the cage. And what happens? I think the first fight, they're going to make sure they put him against somebody he can beat because you want to try to get the most money you can out of him. But I think a year training would probably be a great idea for him.
It's going to be so difficult. They're going to have to bring in somebody because look at Tom would murder CM Punk. The skill levels are not even. It's not even close. They're going to have to bring in somebody. That's like 0-1 or 1-0 or.
Yeah.
Are you saying I'm like the closest person that being able to get beat by CM Punk? Is that what you're trying to say? I'm the best up for him.
Possibly. And you would destroy him.
Yeah. He might be able, if you put CM Punk straight into maybe like Tough China, he might walk away the winner. I'm not sure, but that might be the best bet that he has.
Now, wasn't there a guy on Tough China whose martial arts background included like being a taxi cab driver or something and fending off some drunken?
There was a yogi for sure.
A yoga teacher?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh man, that's the other thing, Jason. Just a couple last questions. I want to ask you. What do you think about Friday nights? I don't. Friday night to me is not fight night. It's get off work and just relax. Maybe have a couple beers, spend some time with the family. Maybe not. Saturday to me is more fight night. What's your take on that?
No, I would agree, but I think in this landscape, you got to get away from the UFC, and the UFC is rarely going to do Friday night shows. So I think they're just in a bad predicament that, you could probably plan out to do Saturday shows where it's not UFC events, but I think Spike is trying to create this Friday night feel. But, when you talk about the target demo they're going after, and if you look at the single male on a Friday night, they're not sitting at home. They're going out to a bar, getting a drink. And is that bar going to even put on Bellator?
Yeah, a lot of times, I have been out and asked them to put it on, and they're like, "Well, what's that?" And I just say Spike, and they're like, "Oh, okay."
Well, you sure as shit weren't at a Dave & Buster's then, were you?
Yeah, that's interesting. It was something I wanted to bring up. I don't have a Dave & Buster's by me, and if Fedor is going to appear at a Dave & Buster's, it just doesn't seem appropriate.
What video game is he going to play?
Yeah, well, valid point. Now,
Fedor deserves a more more affluent, more sophisticated type establishment than Dave & Buster's.
Are you thinking like Chuck E. Cheese? Or?
I don't know. I'm thinking like a Del Frisco's or Capitol Grill or Morton's.
I don't think you're going to – I think his best bet might be Frank and Pepe's Pizza at Mohegan Sun. Or that may be at Foxwoods. I may be getting the two mixed up.
Isn't Michael Jordan's new place that's supposed to be a real high-end place at Mohegan now open?
Oh, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
The only real experience I could say that I've had at Bellator and at Mohegan that kind of relates to this is watching Seth Petrozelli get stopped from going into his own after party at Mohegan Sun. So, I don't mess around at Mohegan Sun too much. They put the fear of God in me that day.
So they weren't going to let you in either, right?
Well, what happened is Seth had just fought and just beaten Rico Rodriguez, and I had already been inside the club. Setting up bottle service and, being fed grapes and fanned down by various women in the club. And Seth's outside getting ready to come in. Well, he forgot his ID. So the security guys, the big Native American gentlemen working the door were like, "Oh, just go get your ID. We can't let you in without it. We saw you fight earlier. Congrats." So I got a call from Seth, and luckily at the time, for absolutely no illegal reasoning, I had a fake ID or a second ID, a spare ID, and which I gave somebody to give to Seth, who then tried to come in, and of course they're like, "You're an idiot! Like, we know who you are. We just told you, congrats on the fight. We know your name, and you're trying to use an ID to get in here." So then they called extra security, and they showed up and wanted to let him in. So.
Wow, that's quite a story. So what is the name of that place at Mohegan?
Where I was? Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jason, just finish up with this. What do you see, like, I guess the 2015 plan for Bellator is pretty much out there. 2016, how many of these tentpole events, as Coker likes to call them, and then how many of their, like, fight night type events, what do you see the schedule shaping up as?
I mean, I've heard they want to go to 6 to 8 tentpole events in 2016. I mean, that's the one thing I've heard. But I think when you're talking about these tentpole events, do you have the big name guys to pull off these events? How many more fights are you gonna get out of Tito Ortiz? I just don't know how many. I mean, I've heard the rumblings that there's only 2 more fights left on Tito's deal, and obviously his next fight looks like it's going to be for a title matchup. But outside of Tito, I guess you put Kimbo, but can they really put these events together and also go into the right market and sell tickets? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been to a Bellator event and there's 1,000 people in the arena or in a casino ballroom. I mean, you can't be doing these tentpole events where you're only having 1,000, 2,000 people. I mean, you got to have 6,000, 7,000 people at those tentpole events to make them work financially. I mean, and that's the key. I mean, they brought in Scott Coker to turn Bellator around, to make Bellator a profitable company. I just don't think they're a profitable company at this point.
Yeah, and that reminds me, have you heard any updates on Rampage Jackson? Because UFC seems to think that Bellator is in breach of that contract on several different fronts. And, the couple people that I've talked to at Bellator say that, no, they're going to fight this, and it's not going to be as easy as the UFC thinks.
Well, if you're going to fight it, where's your injunction? They still haven't filed an injunction to stop him from fighting. I tend to believe that Lorenzo and the Zuffa lawyers have looked over that deal, and they're very confident that there's a breach. I mean, there's so many aspects of that contract. And the one thing I've never gotten about Scott Coker is, I get that Scott wants to blame the former regime for certain aspects. But when you talk about that Rampage deal, it just wasn't Bjorn Rebney negotiating that deal. It was all the higher-ups in Viacom that were negotiating that deal, because there were several aspects to that deal. My guess is you'll never see Rampage back in the Bellator cage.
Yeah, which is a major issue, because he's one of those guys that can sell tickets for those major events, possibly with the right opponent, sell a pay-per-view, certainly draw a couple million viewers. And I think that was the motivation behind UFC bringing him back. Not so much that they needed him, more so just to take him away from Bellator. Yeah. Because how many other guys can draw 2 million viewers on Spike?
I mean, literally, it's Tito. Yeah. That's it. I mean,
Kimbo
how many guys can draw 1.3 million viewers to Spike for Bellator right now?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
like Patricio Pitbull, incredible fighter. Will Brooks, incredible fighter. Michael Chandler, Douglas Lima. I mean, go down the line. But I don't think any of those guys are getting 1.3 million people to watch their fight.
I agree with you. Yeah,
I mean, they're great fighters, and we don't know how great they are until they face top tier competition. But and I think, and that's a big key for me. If you're Bellator going forward, is you got to make sure all those guys are happy. Patricio Pitbull, he only has a couple of fights left on his deal. He's going to test free agency, and I would think that Patricio Pitbull would have a lot of value to the UFC, and particularly in Brazil, because my understanding is when he fights, the TV ratings in Brazil are unreal.
Well, Jason, I appreciate the time. I mean, really great insight into Bellator. And people can find your website, the MMAReport.com. And then also tell them how they can get that podcast with you and Sam Caplan.
Yeah, you can either go on radioinfluence.com, SoundCloud, iTunes, or Stitcher. And on iTunes and Stitcher, just simply search MMA Insiders. It'll be the first thing you find. And, it's always interesting to hear from Sam, someone who's run an organization, and to kind of get his thoughts. Sometimes I just learn, asking him things about how a promotion runs, because there's not really anyone else out there that can really give you that insight of why a promotion does things the way they do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought it was interesting when you guys started up, because I remember from years ago, Sam was a journalist.
Yeah.
He had 5 ounces of pain, and then he got in talent relations, and now I'm sure he's still promoting and doing some management, but and now also back in the media. So I thought that was a great angle, a good idea on your guys' part to. And
I'll tell you And the funniest thing about that is everyone thought that me and Sam talked all the time. The only time I ever talked to Sam when he was at Bellator was at events, and it was like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah, because he very guarded in what he was able to say, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in Bellator that were always very guarded about. There was one person when there was something going down at a weigh-in. He looks at me and goes, "Man, I can't tell you. You're a reporter." He goes, "If I get caught telling you, I'm done." I mean, there was a lot of people that were just scared to lose their gig if they told me something.
Wow. Yeah. All right. And your Twitter is Jason_Floyd.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So follow Jason. Like I said, he'll give you the most comprehensive insight into Bellator, and also Titan fighting. I see you tweeting a lot about that. I know they have a card coming up in March. And then they have a TV deal they got to do. I don't know what's going on with that.
I tell you, I think if they're not back on the CBS Sports Network, my gut feeling is they're going to be on Fight Pass.
Yeah,
and I don't think that's a bad idea either.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, basically, they should just try to be like RFA. Just have an out clause. I don't know how that would sit with RFA, but. I know Wayne Harriman is not involved with RFA anymore. Scott Cutbirth isn't involved anymore. He was the matchmaker there. So it's a little bit different crew running that. So maybe UFC would be happy to bring them on, throw them a very modest license fee to do a show every other month on Fight Pass.
Yeah, and also if you're the UFC, you get all that what's called B-roll footage that they can incorporate once those fighters come into the UFC. I mean, if you look at their next card, look, Desmond Green is going to be in the UFC in the very near future. They can use all that footage of Des Green. If not, also if I was Titan, I'd reach out to Fox Sports 1 and try to get on Fox Sports 1 or even Fox Sports 2. I mean, because I know where Fox Sports 1 and Fox Sports 2 are on my program guide. I could not tell you where NBC or CBS Sports Network is.
I'm right there with you. I don't know anything that's on CBS Sports Net. College. Do they have the Big East? They have a contract with Big East basketball.
No, that's Fox Sports 1 has it. I think they might have the Big East or something, but
maybe I don't that American Athletic Conference that UConn is in.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah. I mean, the thing is, I like what Jeff Aronson and Lex McMahon are doing. I just think that the way they're running things, they're putting on good fights. You can knock them for still being managers, but I think they're doing things the right way.
Yeah, and I understand there is an inherent conflict of interest when you're a promoter and manager, but when you're talking about these second-tier promotions, the important part is guys have an opportunity to make a living. Mm-hmm. And if there's a conflict of interest, then I guess there is. But it's better than these guys fighting on, some card that's not going to be on television, or they're getting paid peanuts. So I mean that's it's not an ideal situation, but I guess that's what it is.
And they're not booking the Alchemist fighters in Titan are not getting easy fights. I mean, they're booking tough fights for their fighters. So it's not like they're trying to give them easy fights to get into the UFC. It's, hey, they're going to face the best guys we have under contract. And that's why I like what they're doing.
Sure. Yeah. All right, Jason. Hey, man, I really appreciate the time. A lot of great information as always. And anybody that's listening, make sure follow him on Twitter, Jason_Floyd, and you won't regret it for sure. Thanks, man. I appreciate the time.
Cool, man. Thanks, man.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Taking a look at the card for UFC 184 in Los Angeles at Staples Center, and I was really surprised because, you know, James, you're a pretty popular fighter. People know who you are. You have mainstream sponsors within the industry, and I saw your name as a Fight Pass prelim. And then I took a look at some of the guys that are on the Fox Sports 1 prelims, and I was just like, hey, did Joe Silva mess this up? Was there something wrong there? Was that your reaction too?
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it. You know, and to me, it really makes no difference like where I fight on the card. But this is a money thing, man. Like, you know, with the Reebok deal going through, I've already lost money on sponsors, and now, you know, after coming in, I fight Stout on 16 days notice. Then I go to top 10 Bobby Green, and then I go to former champion James Varner, and then top 15 Masvidal, and now, you know, all those, you know, pay-per-view or towards the end of Fox Sports 1, and now I'm going to go to Fight Pass, and then, you know, so it's just, it kind of sucks, man. It's everything. It's messing with my money, and I feel like I bring a lot to the table. I feel like I'm exciting. The fans like to watch me, you know, whether they know me or not. You know, I feel like after somebody watches me fight, they're going to say, hey, whoever this guy is, I want to watch him fight again. You know, whether, you know, like I said, whether they know my name or not, they're going to remember my fights. I'm always exciting. I always bring it, and I always fight for the fans. I don't care about winning and losing. I just come out and I want to be exciting. So, yeah, it kind of pisses me off, if you want the truth about it. It's messing with my money, and I get, you know, everybody saying that it's because of who I'm fighting. Well, I mean, put me with somebody else then, because it just doesn't make sense to me that I'm on Fight Pass, and you've literally got people that have never fought in the UFC that are higher on the card than I am.
So how did you get matched with them? So the way I understand it, Joe Silva will go to your manager, Joe Booster, and he'll bring up 2 or 3 names, and then you'll say, I'll fight him or him. Was that how it was presented to you?
No, man. See, hey, I wish I was an option guy. I get that shit all the time, and it pisses me off. I'm not.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Remember this, when you're the greatest fighter in the world today, they got a name for you. They don't call you a great fighter, they call you Chael Sonnen and beat me, if you can.
And after tonight, none of you in this ring will ever be the same again.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kid stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine right, jet flying, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. Woo!
I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
And I have my cold beer. You have your cold beer? If not, you are fucking jabroni.
Wash it down with 1 beer, 2 beers, 3 beers, a shot of whiskey.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Filthy FRB Show. It's Saturday, February 14th. It's Valentine's Day. Of course, I'm joined by Filthy Tom Lawlor. And our guest today is going to fight at UFC 184 in LA, February 28th. His name is James Krause. What's going on, James?
Yo, what's up, guys?
Not too much, man. You're out in Colorado right now?
Yep, I'm out at Colorado. I'm actually sitting outside of Factory X Muay Thai. I've been here for probably two and a half weeks. He likes to kick the leg low. He's a very durable guy. 12-3 with 9 knockouts. One fight in the UFC. He's 0-1. Lost the decision to James Vick. It's pretty much the same with a lot of those Brazilians. They come in here with great records and they're tough, but this guy, he hasn't fought anybody. You know what I mean? He's got 9 knockouts, and that's what everybody keeps bringing up to me. Well, he's 12-3 and 9 knockouts. Does that worry you? Well, I ask you guys, name one person he's knocked out. He's fought a bunch of punching bags from Brazil that don't know how to throw a punch, and that's not a shot. That's just cold hard facts. The fact is he's never fought anybody as good as me, and it's different. It's different when you get in there. Tom, you fight. You know how it is. It's just a different feel. It's a different pace, a different pressure. Whenever you get in there with somebody that is better than you, and that's just how it's going to be. I'm gonna go in and put a pace that he's probably never felt before. Put a pressure he's probably never felt before, and in a different style. I bring a different style to the table. So I'm not the guy that's going to stand in front of him and do the Muay Thai. Okay, your turn. Now I'll go. Now you go. That's not what I'm going to do. So, that's pretty much the story. He hasn't fought anybody really, and the one guy he has fought that's decent, he lost to. So, that's pretty much him in a nutshell.
Yeah, I had a difficulty finding things. He doesn't have a Wikipedia, but he is on SureDog, and I went through his record, and the only guy that I recognized on the record was Vic from his UFC fight.
Well, hold on, real quick.
Okay.
Not to play devil's advocate, but he did beat Chris Wilson. He's also a UFC vet.
Oh yeah, an old Team Quest guy.
Yeah, so there you go. That also answers James' question of if I can not name one guy that he's knocked out, because I looked up his record and that's on there. So
yeah,
there you go. I've been corrected.
Yeah, well, I think Chris, he's seen some better days. I think he's about 6 or 7 years past his competitive prime. But I was
not that guy. They call me and they say, "Hey, do you want to fight this person?" And I'm always like, "Yes." I always say yes. If I'm ready to fight, if it's not short notice or something crazy, I'm always down to fight. Look at who I fought: Stout, Varner, Green, Masvidal. You know what I mean? Like, they definitely. Joe Silva hasn't done me any favors, that's for sure. You know what I mean? And I don't know if they hate me or they love me or what. And I don't care. I'm here to fight the best. It's great. I appreciate him thinking highly of me. So, or lack thereof. I don't know how he feels about me, but I'm not an option guy. They don't give me the 2 or 3 options like they do these other guys, man. They call me with a name, and I generally say yes. So I don't know what I got to do to be the option guy, but whoever I got to knock out to get that, let me know, and let's make that happen.
So, Tom, is that some of the frustration that you've had in the past, or your fights was before Fight Pass even came to fruition, right?
Well, that's not my last fight. Was the main event on Fight Pass. Now,
I love the way that you said that. It was the main event.
Yeah, well, if you take a look, James, you're also the main event on Fight Pass too. So,
yeah, but I'm the only damn fight on there though.
Well, according to the schedule, there's another fight on there as well. But yeah, it's the Fight Pass deal kind of sucks. You get less viewership as far as who's watching your fights. If you're on one of the shows that's not on FS1, you're going to be pretty far down. So the fighters who are fighting on a lot of the European shows and overseas shows maybe get screwed a little bit when it comes to sponsors at this point, because guys realize that they don't have the eyes that FS1 or even being on FS2 has. But you have to fight somebody, and you have to fight them sometime. So you can't really turn down these fights.
So, James, you brought up that it's messing with your sponsor money. And so that the Reebok deal is coming on, and I know you have quite a few sponsors, and
just kind of finishing things up for my training camp and work on a couple of game plan deals, and obviously been out here with Tim Elliott as he fights tonight. But yeah, man, this is a great team out here, and trying to finish everything up and feel sharp going into the 28th.
Yeah, so Factory X, that's Mark Montoya's gym out there in the Denver area. How does his room differ from some of the other training camps or gyms that you've trained at?
It's a different vibe. It really is. I really enjoy it here. I feel like it's super underrated gym. There's just loads of talent here. Nate Marquardt's out here training, Brian Rogers, Marcus Edwards, Brian Foster, Joe Warren. And that's just, Kamozi's here. There's a ton of guys here. There's definitely not a lack of talent in this room for sure, but I really can appreciate Mark's teaching styles. He has a kind of a different outlook on things. He's very intelligent with his game plans. I just like the way he talks to his fighters, and he talks to me, and really everybody out here has been very welcoming to me, and kind of open their minds up for information, and everybody's just trying to help me out. So, I felt like from day one I was part of the team, and they really welcomed me and did everything they can to help me get ready for this fight. So, that doesn't happen a lot in other places. You kind of, if it's your first time in the gym, you kind of get a green light put on your back sometimes where, people just try to test you and see how good you are, but that's definitely not the vibe here.
Yeah, James, we talked a little bit about, you have a fight coming up at UFC 184 that you've been training for against Valmir Lazaro, who it's pretty hard to find information on this dude. I don't know if he's been hiding out in parts unknown or if he's got some hidden ninja skill set. What can you tell us about him, if anything?
Yeah, he comes from southern Brazil. He does his training camps at the Nova União gym. He's got a Muay Thai background.